Alright, only a week I didn't post. Alright, a week I didn't post and I already feel rusty. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing with this making a video kind of thing here. I've been staring at this machine trying to get something done for the video so we can have something on Sunday, but how far do I go before I actually show you what I'm doing? So let me show you a couple of things that I'm coming up with the seat, what we're deciding to do with the seat. We're pretty far from a machine here, so don't expect it to be done in this video. I think in this video we may just get into something else just for fun, but we'll kind of play it by ear. So let me show you what I'm working with and where I'm going. So I've decided I am running that old go-kart seat. So one thing that I actually forgot to mention that's kind of cool is I've owned this seat since I was probably about 12 years old, and there it is. Check it out. You can't really see the seat in this picture, I know, but trust me, that's what I'm sitting on. So there I am at about probably 12 or 13 years old, ripping the old original go-kart up the driveway. Yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool. You guys might enjoy that picture. And had a couple of different pieces of material I was going to kind of work with. Like I had the piece that I had cut off the rear frame. I actually had bolted to the bottom of the seat. And at first I was thinking about running the seat, you know, I can't get it to sit there, but I was going to run the seat all the way back, but I don't want to sit that far back over the wheels. And I did play around with the position of my feet and everything, and that's about where the engine's going to be. So I'm actually going to have the seat right about there, and that's as low as it could possibly go. And it, you know, is perfectly in front of the axle, and it still gives me enough room. It doesn't quite have the lay my legs out flat kind of leg room that I'm looking for, or would hope to have, but it's a good compromise for how big the machine is, and for how this engine is. And the steering box will actually go a little bit further forward than that, as far forward as it can go. But there happens to be a hole in that plate right now that it just is sitting in. So, here's what we're going to do for a bracket. At least the front half of the bracket for the seat. So this is actually an original seat. This is actually the bracket from this machine, from the Craftsman. This would have bolted to the back fender, and the seat would pivot off of here. What I'm going to do is actually just chop this right in the middle. So on both sides, that is going to end up bolting on, because rather than weld on something, I'm going to rather have it be fully removable. And effectively, we'll get it all lined up, but there's a hole in the seat for mounting. I'm actually probably going to end up having to drill another hole maybe over a little bit further, but on this side, that's going to fall right into place in that original frame hole. And then on the other side, I'll just have to drill for it. It's going to go on the outside, because on this side, it does have, you know what, actually it could go on the inside now that I'm looking at it. Yeah, we'll probably try to get it on the inside. So obviously the high-low range shifter is right here, but it can go right around that, or right inside of there. Depending on if this is in the way, but I don't know. We'll kind of see as we go. So right now I'm going to chop this in half, so we have our bracket for both sides. And then with this particular seat, the rear of it mounts here, and it really has to be pretty specifically there, because if you go anywhere else, you're going to end up sitting on bolts, which this normally would have had. Originally on the go-kart, it had like really shallow-headed, I think they were like Phillips heads or something like that, Phillips-headed bolts. So we'll end up probably getting something like that. But, again, we are pretty far from actually having a driving machine here. But I think that a lot of the stuff that matters, like the clutch and the clutch mechanism, clutch pedal, clutch mechanism, that's all going to fall into place, because that's going to be kind of just the stock stuff going right back into position. We are going to have to add idler pulleys that were not in place where they were not before, in order to get the belt to kind of go the way it needs to go. And a throttle pedal is going to have to be totally different than it was before. A lot of things are going to be different than they were before. We got a hood going on it, and I have a cool idea for the rear as well, using what used to be the front. All right, you're going to have to forgive me for the lighting in here, because, well, maybe that's better, right? Nope, not much. All right, so we're already making progress here. So with existing holes, this all just fell into place. This is pretty long, so I'll drill another hole. We'll have 2 holes for that. Either going to trim this here, or I'm going to trim the seat, or I'll just run washers. I don't really need washers. I don't know. It's not the greatest fitment to the seat, right? But that is getting us in the ballpark. That's going to work. So the shifter is going to... Basically, I'm going to end up chopping the shifter off right here. And it's going to come out. So we're going to have to deal with that later to figure out the shifter. But it shouldn't be an issue once that's occurring. That shouldn't affect, the seat should not affect the operation. That side I just have vice gripped on, but actually really happy because I didn't have to drill any extra holes. I mean, the hole that was in this bracket lined right up with that, and we are about as straight and on there in the right position as we're going to get. I still need to refine the positioning. I want to sit down in it again and make sure I have the rake right. Yeah, it definitely is noticeably forward a little bit. But I think we could probably work with this. I mean, we're somewhere. We got a seat half mounted already. I like this. I mean, if this is going to be where it's going to be, then we made it somewhere. So let's possibly just... Well, let me think about that a little bit more. Because obviously I can't move on to any rear bracketry if I don't get the front where I need it, and I can't move on to anything else until I get the seat where I need it, right? Everything kind of... When you build one of these, that you're really drastically changing the frame, the length and the layout and all that. You know, you stand back and you maybe say, where do I start? And I do recommend starting with the seat, because that is, everything is based on where you're sitting. So if you don't have everything already set up and you really are starting from basically nothing, kind of like we are here, you know, we don't have a steering box mounted. We really don't even have the engine actually mounted, but this is where we want it, I think. And we don't have pedals. So starting with the seat position is where you need to start. So let me continue to stare at this and possibly play around with it a little bit. And then we will move on to the next thing. All right, I reached a compromise. One thing to keep in mind, by the way, is that this seat is extremely warped. So at any certain angle, you might be thinking it's crooked. It's hard to tell right now. It looks perfectly fine, but there's no real way to get it perfect. Like either the bottom is going to be slightly off or the top part is going to look crooked. So it is very warped. Good enough to operate, and it sits fine, right? So like we're going to make it work. But you can actually kind of see, oh yeah, you could really see it right there. See how the bottom is going that way and the top is going the opposite. But regardless, the compromise that I reached to get the seat, actually here, let me show you. I got about half, maybe about half of my distance that I said I was missing back. And I didn't really do anything. All I did was this bolt hole on that piece is slotted. And I had it all the way down. And it was kind of down and forward a little bit. So now it is actually basically, it is bottoming out on this. It can't really go back any further, but I don't really feel that the extra half inch maybe is necessary. You know, that's all there really is left. Maybe a half inch to get it back any further. So I'm calling that good. Basically, obviously, as you see, I just loosened that up, slid it up and back, and we got our distance. So I just got to drill the hole on that side, or I'm going to drill 2 holes because, well, that hole doesn't line up like it does on this side. So we'll drill 2 holes on that side to bolt it. Frankly, you know what? I could even just weld those. But I think I'm going to bolt them on. Yeah, it would just be easier to bolt them on. And also, especially on this side, because, well, I guess it wouldn't be that hard to weld them on there from the inside. But just going to stick with as much bolting on as I can. No reason to waste welding wire and welding gas if we could just throw a couple bolts in it. And then we just need to figure out the back. And, you know, just having a couple struts, it's going to be difficult to get that to be strong. That's how the Go-Kart was set up. It just had some struts, or, you know, like bars of metal that had a flat piece on the end. They were round and would have went down to that. So that is how they were set up. The Go-Kart was set up. It just had one on either side. All right, this hot rod is definitely becoming the Recycler 3000 right here, because check this out. We got these two matching pieces. And what I mean by Recycler, of course, is that we are pretty much sticking with, well, with the exception of obviously the seat and the engine, we're basically building this chassis out of itself. You know, we're doing things that are sort of manipulating its layout, or using parts from other parts of the chassis to make things happen, like the front seat brackets. And so here it goes again. These are actually from this machine. These are the deck link brackets that would have suspended the mower deck. And I just have this here to show you how that worked. Or I guess it would have been, yeah, it would have been up in there like that. And what we're going to do here, basically, I'm not exactly sure 100% how I'm going to set this up. I'm not exactly sure 100% how I'm going to set this up just yet. But more or less, that is going to, see, the holes are already there. So that's going to bolt there. At first, I was just thinking, you know, we could just weld it to the frame. And then maybe just, you know, a cross brace so that it's strong. Not sure yet, though. But yeah, that is going to be pretty sweet. And here, let me show you something else funny. As far as these go, if you guys are familiar with the other hot rod tractor over here, or if you're new, I have shown this in the past, but that, kind of recognizable, huh? That is same piece, and that's my throttle pedal. So, we'll go ahead and see if we can make these work for us.
Tire that works with what you have, then re-engineering your suspension to work with an off-the-rack tire. And that's, well, why they do that all the time.
Alright, so this, like I showed you before, this seat is severely warped. The bottom right now is pretty much straight across. How I have it mounted is that's good. It actually feels comfortable too. I can look down it right now and I can see that it's warped even a little bit into the seat, but mostly it's just visually up here is really twisted. And so what we're gonna do is just kind of tweak it so it kind of looks, that's pretty close. I'm just going to tweak it into place, and I'm going to clamp that, and then we'll go ahead and tack it into place. Hey, beautiful. Let's just sit in it, just to be sure that we're not, just sit in it again real quick to make sure it's actually still comfortable. That is the most important thing. I don't want to tweak it at all. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. That feels great, actually. And it looks 10 times better. Alright, so this is as good as it gets. We got the seat straight. The only thing I don't like is that those aren't perfectly straight. They're kind of like a little bit off. But the seat is like very, very stiff. It's basically preloaded now because of it being tweaked. So that's as good as that's going to get. And it feels like it's going to be really strong and stiff. So I'm going to go ahead and weld those. But more free parts, more mower parts from the same machine, and we have our seat brackets. So let's weld those up. Now we're talking. All right. Shake her out. This side didn't come out quite as good, but it's welded, and as you can see, we can get in there and weld it up real nicely too, and we even plug weld it through the hole. Really wish I would have grinded the metal. We're just gonna have to see what we can do about that. Same thing on this side. Wasn't thinking ahead on that one, but that's pretty sweet. I like it. Keeps it lightweight, nothing crazy, you know. And it seems to be really stiff. So there we go. I mean, how awesome is that? We now have the front brackets and the rear brackets are quite literally repurposed bits from this machine. Alright, one thing we need to do, that we actually needed to do when I got this thing, and I never did yet, is free up the bushing in this original clutch mechanism. So where's my hammer? Let's go ahead and knock this bolt out of here. Tell me, is that bolt frozen in there, or is it not? Yeah, that bolt should come out of there. So that is rusted in there. Oh, there we go. I was looking for my PB blaster, and then it occurred to me, I remembered that my PB blaster, as they usually do, stopped working with a bunch in the can still, and then I crushed it, and then you get a little bit more out of it, and that was it. It comes to a point where it just doesn't work anymore. I don't know what it is with the PB blasters anymore. They don't last, and frankly, this WD-40, it doesn't really work very well for this kind of thing. I mean, I have a friend who will tell me that no matter what you use, PB blaster or anything, it doesn't do anything, but I think that's bogus. It definitely works. Man, this is really stuck in here, though. We'll just knock it out this way. There she goes. All right. So we just got to clean this up, put it back in with some grease, and hopefully it'll be all right. Oh yeah, there's like a really bad, it's all really badly pitted right up here. That was the problem. Let's see if you can focus in on it. There you go. See that? So we're gonna have to really, really wire brush the hell out of that. Not as substantial of a texture as there was before. Why do I have a feeling that's not correct? I think Oh yeah, excellent. Wasn't able to tighten it up like that before. Alright. Oh, there's definitely some flex to that frame rail. We're going to want to have something between the bottom and the rails. Oh, that is freaking perfect now. Yeah, that is beautiful. Oh yeah. Now the spring, that's another story because I believe the spring went, I want to say the spring maybe went here or it might have went here. I think it went here. And it pulled. Shoot, I think it pulled up from the dash or back from the dash or something. We're going to have to come up with something else. Shouldn't be too difficult. We got a lot of room to work with. Obviously, the clutch pedal itself is not going to be out here. That's not the plan, anyway. Okay, we can work with this, I think. Of course, when I push the clutch in, yeah. So you know what? This is all going to have to be changed. This piece here will probably have to come off because basically my foot is going to want to be right there. And I'll have to make a pedal off of this rod on the inside instead of on the outside. That's my plan anyway. As far as this linkage being in the way, my gas pedal foot, we're going to have to work around it and make it work. Well, there's full travel, so yeah, we can easily work around that. It's really just this and then our return spring. And of course, the return spring is a whole nother story in itself. So I guess we'll have to come up with something. Now the question also is: are we going to put a brake pedal here, or are we going to go with a handbrake? You know, on the other one, the other hot rod tractor, I really did want that handbrake to work in it. For other reasons, for the reasons that the brakes themselves didn't work that great, it didn't work that great. But I noticed, regardless of the actual performance of the brake, it was very difficult to drive fast, aggressively, having to, rely on a handbrake going into a corner to slide it sideways. I never really got it to actually lock up. But my point is, a foot brake would be a lot easier, a lot more usable for aggressive driving. Be also a lot more complicated to set up. Man, the seat brackets. I'm really happy with the way the seat came out. The next thing for me is, where is the steering gonna lie? Where is the steering box gonna end up? And where is the steering column and all that? How is it gonna mount? Where are my feet gonna end up? So that's what I'm going to tackle. And then once we get all of that kind of figured out, or at least mocked into place, ultimately that may dictate where the engine goes. Now, of course, I don't want to move the engine too far forward if I can help it from where it is right there. But it's probably going to go forward a couple inches. All right, so right now, this is our engine. This is where the engine plate actually was originally. We don't have to use this as our engine plate. We just basically need to have something going across the frame up here that the engine can mount to. Plus, with this having this kind of dish, if you remember from before, we had to basically ride it right up along the frame and then space it out in the middle. But what I'm looking at here is this. Obviously there's no deck, there's no floor like the other Craftsman chassis has. The other Craftsman chassis, my hot rod tractor, the whole frame is a stamped steel piece. With the whole thing is just one big piece on the top that bends down. Obviously this has two frame rails, and so we would have to come up with some way to mount the steering box in the middle. This is not the original steering box to this. This is a steering box known as the second generation Craftsman steering box, although it would only be on the other style frame as far as I know, because this frame has its own specific style steering box. The original box to this looks like it would be pretty strong, pretty good, but it's very big, bulky, and heavy. So I want to use this. Now, kind of the question right now is, where is it going to land? Where's my feet going to land? So what I'm thinking is, because we have this is kind of just perfect for this setup. You know, interestingly, we don't have to necessarily put it in the middle either, but I am going to try to get it in the middle. It'd be easier that way, probably. We are not keeping up with the scheduling here, are we? So if I just put that ahead to, you know, maybe there. Let's just say right there, okay? Just because that's where it kind of falls into place. And actually, you know what? Maybe if we take it, maybe this piece could be useful. Oh, that also falls into place where there's some holes too. Oh wow, there's actually, it basically lines up with 4 holes if we put it right there. Oh, okay. That actually might still be good. Huh. Oh. Then again, but then that's probably right where the engine's going to be, though. Or no, it wouldn't be there because it have to be in front of that steering box. Boy, it's going to be tight, though. I mean, there's not a whole lot of room for pedals. We're going to be running the old school wheel. This is actually what I had on my hot rod tractor for a while. The 500 by Superior Performance Products. Now, if you guys are familiar with Corvette Summer, they mentioned Superior, was it Superior Mags? Mercury tubes, Superior Mags, and Gabriel shocks. And of course, Superior Mags referring to the wheels. Mercury tubes, it had side pipes. And I think Gabriel shocks goes without explaining. I realized a second ago that about half of what I was showing you was out of frame, so I'm showing you again that if we were to mock ourselves into position here, we're going to have about a 90-degree bend on your arms. Now, you know, it's up to you how you want to set up a machine. If you prefer to have your arms out here or back here, that's one thing. Now, I will say it's not ideal. Ideal position for good control of a vehicle, a steering wheeled vehicle, is 90 degrees, 90-degree bend at the elbow. How low or high you want the steering wheel, that's more subjective. That's more up to you. So I'm going to want the steering wheel. Obviously, you got to think about your leg room. So I'm going to want this probably about, also you got to think about your elbows too. In this case, we got this bolstering here, and you got to remember, we're not dealing with a go-kart here, where the steering on a go-kart is just this and this. You know, we're going to be, you know, sawing at the wheel. It'll be like 1.5 turns, I think, lock to lock. So, yeah, this is beautiful. This again, we're really far from actually having something here, but this is all part of the game right here. Mock it into place. Have your vision and start letting it fall into place. So yesterday I was going crazy because I lost my marker. I just found it. Alright, so by what I said earlier, I shouldn't be doing anything with that engine until I have a steering column and all that stuff. But I lied. So now that I have this steering box location figured out, everything from there to there can be easily figured out, really. We just really needed to know where could the steering box land and where could the engine land. And now I have that information. So I want to make bigger moves here. I want this engine mounted, and I have it right where I want it. moved a little bit, but I think it'll be all right. Like I said, we'll just make the holes a little bit oversized. It'll be no big deal. This thing's dead. All right. Well, I decided this is kind of silly. I can easily make something to mount the steering box to, but, you know, or let me put it a different way. It would be easier for me to make something to mount the steering box to, than, no, let me put that a different way. It will look a lot cleaner and more appropriate if I put this engine plate up. And obviously on this side we have it spaced up. The other side we are mounted to the frame rail right on the edge. If I just move this steering or this engine plate up, drill a couple more holes, we have our engine mounted. That will be done. Right now we only have 3 holes and we have to make something for just 1 hole, and it just seems kind of silly. We'll do that, we'll move that up, we'll get that mounted, and the only thing that I was really wanting out of this was this little kind of kick down, because my feet lay in there perfectly. But now that I see how that works, it just gives me inspiration. We'll just have to kind of come up with something similar, make it out of something, you know, it won't be that piece. You know, I really just wanted to see how that was going to work, because obviously just dropping the steering box in place and everything. But the good thing is we now have our engine halfway mounted. We have it in position. We know where it's going to go. So even when we take that plate and move it forward, we still have 2 holes. We'll just have to transfer those holes to the engine plate. And then, yeah, we are going to, from there, probably start messing with the steering, more of the steering. Well, we're gonna have to get the steering box mounted and get the steering column figured out. And I am definitely taking a lot longer on this project than I thought I was going to, and you guys are gonna have to stick with me for probably a couple more videos, at least another video, but I'm not even gonna promise you that. I think it's gonna be a little while before we get this project going. I am not doing very well with my scheduling and my willingness to just keep on plugging through a project here. I'm getting more motivated though as I see this thing coming together, so stick with me, we'll get her done. well, sort of disappointingly, all we did this week was get the seat mounted, get the engine mostly mounted, kind of figure out where everything's going to lay out here. You know, the amazing thing is, I think we actually have more. Yeah, I think we got more leg room between the engine. Maybe actually it's pretty close. I think it's pretty similar. So, but what it is this seat being laid back and kind of dropped in. Although I think the seat on the other one is actually lower overall. But this just, it feels like there's more room. But yeah, that's all we're getting done this week. Wanted to get this shifter done, or at least started to. I ended up cutting. What did I do with the other piece? Yeah, so I ended up cutting the shifter off. It's not going to be as easy. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but you know, you got to think about. I want it to go out and over here. You know, be up in the traditional location, but obviously it's not a forward and back H pattern, it's a side to side H pattern. And we have to think about the extreme angles of if it's in first gear. Obviously there's a bunch of stuff in our way. It's not like we can just go out the frame, right? We have this high-low range in the way. So first gear and second gear are kind of the issue, and then that range is not too bad, and then when we're in reverse, and down into third, those will be less of an issue. It's really first and second gear where this is going to be pointing up. So we'll get working on that next time. And you got to think about all the stuff that I want to do to this. Kind of makes you realize how far away. We got to do an exhaust system. We got to get the hood on here. And I did mock this hood into place, this old 60s Alice Chalmers hood. But, yeah, it's going to probably look okay, but it's not quite long enough to really fill in the big area between the engine and the driver. So we're going to have to figure some other stuff out, too. But either way, that was a really quick and well, I don't know what I would call it. That was a quick episode, right? I don't know. I haven't edited it yet. I don't know how long this is. I'm going to, you know, at least you got to see a little bit of the old hot rod tractor, even though I filmed that for TikTok, so it was up and down, and I had to kind of expand it a little bit, and it wasn't right, but you got to hear it at least. So, see you guys next time. Thanks for subscribing. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Like the video. So, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.